When Joe Biden said they're killing people, was he right about Facebook, or was he simply shooting the messenger? That is the question I'm going to be asking this week in the latest issue of the Wiser newsletter. Hello friends, and welcome to the Wiser newsletter. This week I'm going to be taking a look at Facebook, and it was triggered by President Biden's comments on Friday the 16th of July when a reporter asked him, "What's your message to platforms like Facebook?" Biden thought for a moment and then he said this.
What's your message to platforms like Facebook?
They're killing people. I mean, look, the only pandemic we have is among the unvaccinated. And they're killing people.
Now, within a few days, the president had backed away from his words. And when asked by CNN to explain what he meant, Biden said, Facebook isn't killing people. These 12 people are out there giving misinformation. Anyone listening to it is getting hurt by it. It's killing people. It's bad information. Now, Biden's change of tone was a reference to data from the non-profit Center for Countering Digital Hate in a report that they published in March. The report was called the Disinformation Dozen, and it listed 12 people on Facebook as the super spreaders of anti-vax misinformation. And they calculated that these 12 people accounted for 73% of anti-vax misinformation on Facebook. Now, Biden's point on both Friday and the Monday was that Facebook and the other social media platforms, but primarily aimed at Facebook, that they were not doing enough, if anything, to stop the spread of misinformation. Now, this is not new ground for Biden when it comes to criticising Facebook. During the presidential election campaign last year, Biden wrote an open letter to Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg and said, "Tens of millions of Americans rely on Facebook as a news source, and the company continues to amplify misinformation." Now, back then, Biden's focus was on election misinformation and the social media platform's willingness to accept advertising revenues from any source in return for targeting ads and content at voters. But let's be clear, Biden is talking specifically about Facebook when he's asked about social media. He's not talking about Tucker Carlson or Breitbart or Twitter, but Facebook. Because anecdotally, when you ask somebody, where did you get that piece of information from? They say, I read it on Facebook. Now, in the last week, Mark Zuckerberg has spoken about the president's comments in an interview with Casey Newton. Now, Zuckerberg said, it's a little bit like fighting crime in a city. No one expects that you're ever going to fully solve crime in a city. Now, this seems a bit odd to compare fighting crime as a police force to fighting misinformation when you are the very platform that enabled it in the first place. But putting my own bias to one side, I have gone in search of some data points to try and answer these questions. The first was I ran a poll on LinkedIn over the weekend. It was seen by nearly 14,000 people, and this is how they voted. Now, there's no getting away from the fact that Facebook is an awesome business model. In 2020, Facebook revenue was almost $86 billion with an operating margin of 38%, which is not bad for a service that is free. Facebook has more reach and influence than any other organisation, institution or government in the world. Around a third of the world is on Facebook, which is about 2.7 billion people, and 1.8 billion of them use Facebook every day. Now, to put that into context, that's more than the total populations of either of the two most populous nations, which is China and India, or more than any of the largest religions in the world, which is Christianity, Islam or Hinduism. Now, when you break the demographics down, 4 in 5 users of Facebook are under the age of 45, with women out using Facebook compared to men. Now, taking a close look at the United States demographics, around 7 in 10 Americans are on Facebook, and around half of them use Facebook more than once a day. Now, coming back to the point of the article, which is really around Biden's question, the most relevant stat that I found, and this is according to Reuters, is that 36% of all US adults get news from Facebook. Now, a study by online advocacy group Avaz found that Facebook could have prevented an estimated 10 billion views of the most prominent pages that repeatedly shared misinformation last year in the US presidential elections. The study also found The top 100 most popular false or misleading stories on Facebook related to the 2020 elections. And when it comes to COVID misinformation, a survey out this week by YouGov America found that 18% of Americans will not get vaccinated and a further 11% are unsure. They also reported a significant split in the left and right of political demographics, with only 4% of Democrats saying they won't take the vaccine compared to 29% of Republicans. Now, the survey sought to understand why there is such a high percentage of Americans that won't vaccinate, and they found two primary reasons. 49% think that the vaccine will cause autism, and 51% thought that this vaccine is being used by the US government to microchip the population. Although it doesn't explain how the rest of the world is getting COVID, because I don't think the US government is microchipping everybody. But as they say, now as funny as folk. Now, after Biden's criticism, Facebook went on the offensive. Led by the VP of Integrity, which is a job title I've never seen before, Facebook went after Biden, claiming that the president was trying to deflect attention away from his failed vaccination program. Now, just as a side note, politically, Facebook may come to regret such an aggressive attack on the US president, given that A, they never did anything like that to Trump, and B, the Democrats could very well be in the White House for another 7 years. And with antitrust and the break up big tech movement gaining momentum, now may not be a good time to poke the bear. In the rebuttal statement, Facebook urged the president to focus on, I quote, facts, not allegations. And some might see the irony here, but I couldn't possibly comment. Unfortunately, Facebook didn't follow that up with releasing all the facts themselves, because they could have done. In the press release, Facebook said that 2 billion people had viewed accurate information on the vaccines. What they didn't say was how many Facebook users had seen inaccurate information. And let's be clear, they do know what this number is. Now that brings us on to a piece of technology called CrowdTangle. Now Fast Company once called CrowdTangle, in quotes, the secret to winning Facebook. CrowdTangle is an app that Facebook acquired in 2017 and is widely considered to be a game changer for journalists in the digital age. This platform is an invaluable tool for local news agencies and pretty much any other company that needs to keep track of new happenings on social media. In fact, it has been so successful that it is being used against Facebook. CrowdTangle works by aggregating all meaningful content across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit posts. This allows social media managers to understand what is being said across multiple social media platforms so that they can fine-tune their message to be on trend. New York Times reporter Kevin Roose has used CrowdTangle to create a Twitter account called @Facebook's Top 10. Every day, he posts a top 10 list of the link posts with the highest engagement on Facebook. And it's no surprise that this top 10 list is dominated by right-wing news and media outlets. In an attempt by Facebook to address this question of moderation, last year they established the Facebook Oversight Board. It's been talked about since 2018, but it didn't actually come into effect until late 2020. Now, the Facebook Oversight Board is an independent body that oversees all of the social media platforms in the Facebook group. The board is made up of 20 experts in areas like free expression, human rights, and journalism, and is designed to be independent of Facebook according to its charter. The decision to ban former President Donald Trump from Facebook until 2023 was made by the Oversight Board, not Facebook itself. Now, when that ban was announced, Trump responded by saying he'll not be inviting Zuckerberg again to the White House for dinner next time he's president. Remember that in 2019, Trump and Zuckerberg had an undisclosed secret dinner in the White House. So that's all for this week's issue of the Wiser newsletter. To read the full article with more content than I've covered in this video, go to the link below now. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel that you're watching this video on so that you always get notified of the videos that come out every individual week. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought of the video. That's all for this week. And remember, inside information gives you leverage. Thanks for watching.